So you want to raise money for your startup. That's a great idea. However, you need to make sure that you don't accidentally break federal security laws in the United States. I'm Anna, the CEO of Founders Registry, and my company has worked with almost 1,000 founders, one-on-one, through accelerator programs, and through venture capital firms. Our founders have collectively raised almost $200 million in the United States. And here's a big mistake that I see founders make over and over again, and a mistake that I made myself when I was first fundraising. This would not only cost you your company, all of the funding that you have raised, but it could also ban you from raising capital ever again in your entire life. So in this video, I want to break down for you the most important things to know about SEC guidelines so that you don't get hit with fines and you don't get in trouble and you get to keep the money that you have raised for your company. So let's start with the basics. If you're giving someone equity into your company in exchange for money, even if it's just family and friends, you are selling a security, which means the SEC is now involved. Most startups raise under Regulation D, which means either 506B, which lets you raise from 35 non-accredited investors, but you cannot publicly advertise, or 506C, which lets you publicly promote your raise, but only to verified accredited investors. Real quick side note, what is an accredited investor? Basically, it means that it's someone that is financially sophisticated enough to be able to take risky bets on startups, for example, in private offerings. They need to meet at least one of the following criteria. They have to either have $200,000 individual household income a year or $300,000 household income a year with a spouse. And that has to be consistent for at least 2 years. Or their net worth has to be $1 million or more. And that does not include the value of their private home in which they live. Here comes a really big one. Do not ever promise returns. And I know you'll be like, how could I promise returns? But it could be an easy misstep on a social media post, such as saying, you'll easily make 10 times your money back. Or this is a guaranteed success. Any forward-looking statement when you're fundraising needs to be framed as, this is what I project to happen. It is not a promise. There is no guarantee for this to actually happen. And you might think that that's obvious, but even just joking about it or posting something about it on social media can really get you in hot waters. Even if maybe not with the SEC, because they might not see your social media post, when an investor does due diligence on you and goes through your social media accounts, an entire deal could fall apart because of a social media post that was badly worded. And here's the rule that I see founders break time and time again. And as soon as I see it, I always slide into everyone's DM as fast as possible. But unfortunately, I've seen too many founders, especially in the day and age of TikTok, not taking that advice seriously enough. You cannot publicly advertise that you're fundraising. And that is the mistake that I made years ago myself. Here's what I did. At the time, I was living in Los Angeles and a lot of my investors were on the East Coast. So I was traveling a lot to Boston and I was raising capital all across the United States. I had a public Instagram account and I would post on my Instagram story that I'm currently fundraising, how much I'm raising, where I'm flying to. And I would post things such as, if you also want to invest, hit me up. Because I was so excited and on cloud 9. Things were going so well and not a single investor had ever told me no. So I was like, who else wants to invest in my company? Thankfully, one of my board members was following me on my Instagram account and they saw the moment that my story went up and immediately messaged me and said, hey, you need to take down your story. And I was like, why? What did I do? So he told me about the SEC guideline to not publicly solicitate investors. So thankfully, he caught it so early that no one had watched my story and I was able to just delete it and never make that mistake again. But I remember being very confused. I had gone through some of the top accelerator programs in the country. I had one of the best law firms in the world represent my company. I had an accountant firm and I had a CPA firm. So you would think I had the perfect team set up to help me scale my company. And nobody had ever told me about those guidelines. And one of the reasons that it never occurred to me is because I was also following all of these other founders that were fundraising and everyone was always posting about it on social media. So when I started Founders Registry and I started working with accelerator programs, one of the first things that I always tell my cohorts is do not publicly solicitate. You cannot advertise online that you are fundraising for your startup. And unfortunately, I see it time and time again that founders post on TikTok. And it's a little bit of a gray area, right? What is considered solicitation and what is considered you just sharing a day in the life of a founder? And the truth is that sure, you could argue that, but would you want to risk your reputation, fines, getting banned from fundraising for the rest of your life and potentially having to pay back everything that you have raised to your investors? Because personally, I would not take that risk. And yes, you heard correctly. If you publicly solicitate and you get fined by the SEC, you could be banned from ever raising capital again for the rest of your life. Let's say you have raised $5 million and you're posting about raising the next round of capital and you've probably already spent most of those $5 million. Guess what? You're still on the hook to repay all of that money. No one is going to care for the fact that you already spent most of that money and you're currently raising the next round. You have broken SEC guidelines. So you're now on the hook for fines to pay back everything that you have ever raised, being banned from fundraising for the rest of your life. You could face lawsuits by your investors and so much more. It is not worth it. You need to limit those conversations to private conversations, not public conversations. So the only way that you can publicly promote your race is if everyone in the room is a verified accredited investor. So let me go over a few phrases to not say, and then I'm going to tell you what you could say instead if you want to get investors' attention. First, what not to say. I am currently fundraising. We are looking for investors. DM me or reach out to me if you want to invest. Here's the valuation and the terms that I'm raising on. Here is language that I would suggest. Again, tread carefully. This is not legal advice. That is kind of implied fundraising, but not considered solicitation. For example, I had an incredible week filled with investor meetings. I am so grateful for the momentum that my company currently has with investors. You could also say something like, I'm currently preparing some meetings for next week with investors, and I'm so excited to tell them everything about my company. And please remember, when in doubt, it is better to just sip it and not say anything because the risk is not worth it. One short example of a founder that I've tried to warn that kept ignoring me. Her videos kept popping up on my For You page, and she kept telling everyone that she's trying to raise capital. I first messaged her in a private DM and told her to take it down because it's against SEC guidelines. She never responded. I forgot about it. Another video of hers popped up, again soliciting publicly on TikTok. This time, I took the URL off the SEC guideline and I just DM'd it to her because I thought, okay, fair enough. She might just not know who I am. She might not look at my profile and not realize that that is what I do for a living. So let me just send to her the guidelines so she understands that this is serious and she really needs to take down the content. This time, she saw my message and ignored me. The third time it popped up, I left a comment on a video and just said, hey, I sent you a DM about that. And a few hours later, I saw that she had deleted my comment of her public TikTok video. So at that point, I was like, you know what? My duty is done here. I was trying to help a fellow founder. I'm not her attorney. I'm not giving her any legal advice. I was literally just trying to help someone out because I myself had made that mistake. And I was very grateful that someone had pointed out SEC guidelines to me. And then one day she posted about how she had finally closed her round and she was so excited about it. And it took her less than 24 hours to post a follow-up video sharing that her entire round had fallen apart because of a mistake that she didn't know about. And now everything is over. And I think like a couple of weeks later, she posted that she decided to close down the company because she didn't have enough money to keep going. Now, I'm not saying that the reason her company shut down was because she broke SEC guidelines, because it could have been a variety of different issues that I don't know about. But what I will say is that that specific founder kept posting about fundraising and kept publicly soliciting on her TikTok account with thousands of followers and kept ignoring every single warning that I had given her. And just because you have a commitment from investor does not mean that the investment is actually going to happen. Number one, you always wait till the wire actually hits your bank account. And number two, if you broke SEC guidelines, again, you can be on the hook for that even years later. So once again, when in doubt, don't talk about fundraising. It is not worth it. Focus on your mission, your vision, why it is that you're building what you're building, why you're so passionate about it. And don't forget, good investors always invest in a founder and not in a startup. So make sure that they understand why you are the perfect person to take a bet on and to scale this company into massive success. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And as always, you can find out all of the work that we do at foundersregistry.com. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I'll continue sharing tips and tricks for fundraising and for scaling your company.